Hi, and welcome back to the Why Eating Healthy is Not Enough Summit. I'm Linda Mechner, your host, and I'm here today with Dr. Meg Haworth, who is a transpersonal psychologist and holistic wellness expert. Meg, would you like to tell us a little bit more about you?
Hi, yeah, thank you so much, first of all, for having me on this summit. I'm really honored to be a part of it. And what I do is I help women abuse survivors with chronic illness heal themselves with holistic wellness solutions. So that's mind body medicine, transpersonal psychology, which is holistic psychology. So it looks at the whole being, and then food. So I actually have a background as a private chef working with celebrities in Hollywood. So and keeping them thin for camera, everything's gluten-free, dairy-free, all of that good stuff. So, but my background that really got me into doing what I do today is that I went through abuse as a child um, by multiple people, sexual, physical, emotional abuse. And then by the time I was in my 20s, in and out of doctor's offices, sick all the time. And, which is irritable bowel syndrome, migraine headaches, depression, PTSD from all the trauma, and then ulcers. It was just a list, a big list, a lot of stress related illnesses. And eventually in my late 20s, I found an article in the Washingtonian magazine where I'm from, Washington, D.C., and I was reading about alternative medicine. And I thought, oh, chiropractic care, that would be great for so-and-so. Meanwhile, I can barely hold up the magazine. I'm in so much pain I would get these severe muscle spasms in my neck and upper back from scoliosis, and I would later learn dairy products. And anyway, it clicked with me. I need to do something for myself to get well. So I started going to a chiropractor right away. A friend of mine had been raving, and she introduced me to a whole world, just yoga and meditation and massage and all these wonderful healing modalities. That eventually, I ended up with nutrition and transpersonal psychology is my thing that I use to help people get well now because it worked so well for me.
So interesting. I think your story is actually really more common than I think people realize, or well, more common than some people realize. I think some people aren't aware of it at all, and other people think that they're all alone, that it like they're different. And I think that story is so common, the different kinds of abuse and neglect, and it so shapes us as a human being. It shapes our health in such profound ways that I think that it's hard to even fathom. And so at some level it's discounted.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, especially as somebody in a health field, being aware of ACEs, which is the Adverse Childhood Experiences study, is just so impactful. So maybe you could say a little bit more about the ACEs, because I think this is a really important piece.
Yeah, I think this was critical to understanding what's happening in our bodies and how our bodies reflect our experiences. But the Adverse Childhood Experiences study is the largest public health study ever done. There have been copycat studies done all over the world, but it originates in and is still ongoing in San Diego at Kaiser Permanente. And what they did is they've tracked over 17,000 people since the mid-90s. And they've started asking them questions like, what did you have in your home? What did you deal with? Did your parents divorce? Did a parent abandon you? Was there alcoholism in the home? Was there mental illness of a parent or caregiver? Was there physical, sexual, emotional abuse? And ACE quiz, which is actually on my website, is a 10-question quiz, simple yes/no answers that you can get your ACE score. And that helps you understand the likelihood that, one, your illness may be connected to your past experiences of abuse and neglect and family dysfunction. And two, that it also lets you know, the higher your score is, kind of lets you know what you're more vulnerable to developing in your body. And some of the top diseases that they've linked are lung diseases, cancer and autoimmune diseases.
So interesting. So if somebody has a high ACEs score, right? They have, I mean, I think, what is it? A score of 3 or 4 is actually pretty high. And
Yes.
some people have 6 or 7. I mean, it's crazy. But like, let's say somebody has had these adverse childhood experiences, obviously they can't change the past. So what could they do to help change their health outcome?
Yeah, that's a great question. And first of all, I think it really helps to know that there's a link between the two, because especially for people who've done everything to eliminate all the foods that are the offending foods, and they may be feeling significantly better. I know this happened to me, and I see it in a lot of my clients. But it's the emotions and how we store emotions in our body and how the body holds the experience that we went through. Our mind has one idea about it, but there's a concept known as the body mind that has a mind of its own. So it's remembering the experiences and thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and emotions, and it's holding it in that part of your body. So, I'll see somebody with ulcers, for instance, who may have, a lot of anxiety, and they feel the anxiety all the time in their stomach. And that anxiety is basically draining them of their precious vital energy, which eventually drains the biology. So the cells respond in kind, but the good news is that the cells also respond to love, compassion, caring, all of the qualities that are they're so powerful. I mean, I always say if emotions can make us sick, which we all know. I mean, I'm worried sick about that thing, or this person makes me sick to my stomach,
Yeah.
They can also make us well. And that's the main thing I help people with, is wellness through emotional literacy and emotional clearing and health. So it's really exciting. I think, traditional psychotherapy is so useful and valuable. I did it for 15 years before I found transpersonal, but it wasn't until I got into transpersonal that the rapid healing happened. And that's why I chose that field, because I want to see people heal rapidly, just like I got to, So.
Yeah, it's an interesting trend that I've watched for the last 30 years that I've been on my own personal health journey. But there is this real strong shift from people going from a more allopathic to more holistic. And then even beyond holistic is this mind integration piece. And, I think of Deepak Chopra and, some of these real leaders who have changed their model of practice so radically over the years. Because, I think of food as being, food changes everything, which it does. But this other piece, this, thought piece, is so much more powerful, because we've all seen people who eat, their diet is far from perfect, and yet they seem to maintain this level of health that, we can all aspire to. And, they might have been dealt a great genetic hand. That's one piece of it. But then the other is just not, like how they process their thoughts and how they look at food. I mean, for people who think that, not eating organic is an insult to their body, that message, whether or not the food is really bad or not is not the point. It's what they think about it. So it could be super healthy food, but they're thinking, oh no, it's not perfect. And all their body gets is, no, this isn't good.
Yeah, because then you have an emotional response. That's exactly what I was talking about, that emotional response that you have to it. And then that can actually create a weakening in the biology. So now your digestion is off because the belief came first. And I think you just touched on one of the most critical things that we don't think about, and I think it's absolutely important that we do, is that everything that we do in human life begins with a thought. Like if you think about the building that you're sitting in, somebody had to think it up first and then draw up the architectural plans, and then they had to build it. And it took a while. It wasn't something that just happened like that, you know? So,
Yeah.
but we don't think this way in terms of the physical body. We don't think this way in terms of medicine. This is the last place we look. And in most cases, it's never looked at. How did those thoughts create the illness in my body? What was the contributing factor there? How did the experiences of being treated like you were just like dirt, you know? How did that affect you? I mean, that has a huge impact on an individual. And, you know, I think now that we know the science is here, and is indelibly linking this, and we see these studies all over the world, I think getting to the root cause of the thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and emotions, which is I created a technique that helps people do that. That is what helps people heal. I've watched incredible healings happen as a result of just getting to how the abuse affected their bodies physically.
Interesting. So just becoming aware of the connection is what creates the healing for people?
The awareness, in some people, yes, that's all it takes is the awareness. But what I find in most of my clients is that doing the whole person integration technique that I created, that really helps them shift the energy. Because if you think about, ultimately, the only thing that we come into this world with and the only thing we leave this world with is our energy system.
Right.
And when we take care of that, and that's really what I'm caring for with people, with my clients, I'm helping them care for that part of themselves. When we take care of that, then the biology starts to take care of itself. And of course, food just supports the whole thing to happen in just a rapid way. So it's truly a holistic process, you know?
Right. I just love that. I love your two-pronged approach. And so you mentioned before gluten-free and dairy-free as sort of the Hollywood trend. Is that true?
Yeah, well, you know, if you look at, actually, one of my friends, Isabella Wentz, has a chart in her latest book of the diseases and the foods that are connected with those specific diseases. I think it's the most brilliant chart I think I've ever seen. And almost every single disease that's listed there, gluten and dairy are on the list.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because there's so much research now about the effects of gluten, especially here in the US, and so much of it has to do with the farming practices. You know, they're spraying the wheat crops with glyphosate, Roundup, you know, which is a known carcinogen. Europe doesn't use it. They won't use it because they don't want to kill their people. You know, they want to keep their people healthy. But because of the economic interests involved in that particular poison, because that's what it is. So anyway, they ripen their wheat crops with using it as a desiccant. So they just saturate the wheat crop with glyphosate to get them to ripen faster, so they can, you know, harvest more all at once. So that's just one of the problems, and it's multi-layered.
Yeah, so crazy. You know, I've been a health coach for 12 years, and one of my first clients was German. And she used to tell me that she could go back to, like, she couldn't eat wheat or any bread or anything in the US, but she'd go back to Germany and she could have it every day for breakfast and feel absolutely fine. And I was a little skeptical, but then more and more clients would tell me the exact same thing, that in Europe they could go eat wheat and they were fine, and here they couldn't. And then, of course I realized, some of the practices, how they were contributing to that, and just even the differences of the strains of wheat and the crops and all of that.
Yeah, exactly. The genetic modifications they did here actually doubled the gluten content in every grain. So you're getting double of the gluten that we used to get. So because they were just trying to increase the amount of crop that you can get, they were trying to maximize their profits and concurrent with that, we see in the 1980s, they made the bottom of the food pyramid grains because we had such a surplus of grain in this country that it became now the foundation for the food pyramid. They needed to sell it. So, but it's actually, the food pyramid's actually upside down, more or less, you know. So it's fruits, mainly vegetables, and of course, you know, organic meats and all. I know we are talking about the same things in our work, but
yeah, no, I mean, and you're so right. That's exactly right. Vegetables should be the bulk of it, and you know, high quality proteins, whatever your preferred protein is for your body, and the grain. I just am so. I mean, I don't want to be anti-grain, but it's hard not to be in this country because you really have to wonder about the safety of it. And
yeah, and two excellent books that really let us know about this is Grain Brain and Wheat Belly. Those two books are fantastic because those two doctors have really condensed the science and let us understand what they're doing and how it's affecting human health. You know?
Yeah, those are fabulous books.
I love them.
And so, you know, there's something else that you touched on, which I don't even know if it's how to bring it up, but you said you were struck by lightning, which I just find so amazing. Like, you have this incredible life story already, and then you were struck by lightning. How has that shifted how you approach life and how you approach health?
Oh my gosh, it changed everything for me. I was a very successful celebrity, chef to celebrities here in Hollywood when it happened, and it's been 5 years now. And it was a major turning point for me because it affected, damaged 3 areas of my brain, a disc in my lower back, the nerves and muscles in my legs. I mean, just the whole nervous system has been it's been a journey coming back from that, but I couldn't work any longer. So my doctor put me on disability, and I just was never able to pick up the way I was before. But I had this PhD in transpersonal psychology, and I remember I'd be chopping onions in a celebrity kitchen and thinking to myself, how did I get here, first of all? and why am I not using this PhD I have? This is so profound and powerful. And I think, you know, the way the powers that be that work, you know, it's like I was meant to be in those kitchens so I could really understand how first of all, how to, which I was already doing anyway, how to make food really delicious and really simple. Because when you're making 11 dishes in a day, you have to make it simple, but also as healthy as possible. And then, so what I did is, after the lightning strike, is I just put it all together in my program, Get Well Now. And then, you know, now working with women abuse survivors, which I've been doing all along. That's who would show up in my healing room, my treatment room, because, you know, we bring in reflections of ourselves, you know?
Right.
Yeah, and it had been so effective. So eventually it's like, wait a minute. One of my coaches said, you should be doing this out in public. Why aren't you talking about this publicly? I'm like, oh yeah, good idea. So anyway, so the lightning strike was a big turning point. How could it not be, right?
Right.
A bolt comes down from the heavens. You live through the experience. And incidentally, that was my second. I had a near-death experience when I was 2. I drowned.
Oh my goodness.
And was, you know, like dead in the water, drowned, and had to be revived. So I always had this connection to just the sixth sense, you know, just kind of knowing things without knowing it. And so I use my intuitive abilities in my work, and it's really profound. It helps people get to the thing really fast, you know. So
yeah, you know, it's so interesting. I had a teacher, this was when I was working with horses, and he was a very spiritually grounded person and really brought that into the work with horses. And one of the girls that I had been working with, she had left that farm and she had moved on to somewhere else. But I guess she got kicked in the face by a horse and it broke her jaw. And he told me that, and I was like, oh my God, how awful. And, he sort of reflected for a second, and he said, sometimes when you don't listen to the universe will make you listen. And it really struck me, because I think sometimes we go through life trying to ignore all of the signs. And if we ignore them too long, they're going to, at some point, the universe is going to take a stronger hand. If you don't listen to the subtle messages, we will give you an unignorable message. And I know for me, in my life journey, I've had those before where I just didn't know what I didn't know. And I would just say, oh yeah, I'll take care of that later. I'll do that later. And I lived life burning my candle at both ends until, something would happen, car accident, illness that I could not ignore, could not.
Yeah.
And
I think that's a great point, because also what you're talking about, and I see this more because I've worked with a lot of doctors and psychologists, people that are in the healing arts in that profession, and I see these big experiences happening more and more with us, and I think it's too because I think what you're meant to do on this planet, you're going to have the lessons that will help you do that. I think the bigger the lesson, the bigger the impact you can make, if that's how you choose to do it, because we do have the free will to do it. But the wake-up call, like you're talking about wake-up calls,
right,
is something that we all go through wake-up calls, and it's what you do with that wake-up call that really matters most. And the way that you and that was actually the big question I asked myself after I was struck, when I called it the ultimate timeout from the universe. I had to literally sit in my house and go, what am I going to do now? Am I living a life of service? Am I doing the best I can to serve others? And immediately the answer was no. It was, to me, that was, even though it was a great honor to do the work that I got to do as a chef, it's still, I could make a much bigger impact if I'm out here talking, having these conversations. How many people do we get to help? Like, that excites me,
Yeah, absolutely. I think about why I'm here on this earth, and I really think it is as a message bringer. And sometimes I think of myself too as a ferryman, where I'm bringing people out of unconsciousness. Like, I remember the time when I just didn't know what I didn't know, and I had to wake up. And I see myself as somebody that helps people wake up, go a little ways, and then they're off, to their higher calling, to their next, to whatever their life mission is. Like, I'm not the person who's going to see them to the end, but I'm that middle person. I'm that person in the middle that gets them from one place to another point where they can really just have that fulfilled life that is of their own making.
Yeah.
And so much of it is health. Without the capacity of health, there's not much to talk about, right?
Right. Because health is something that happens on all levels.
Yeah.
We look at it mainly in a physical way in our world, not just our country, but our country particularly, in the U.S., as we really look at it as a physical thing. And it's so much more than that. It's a whole, we have a holistic system, and taking care of all parts of that system is necessary to achieve a high level of wellness. I mean, I think about, I had fibromyalgia at one point and chronic fatigue syndrome. I don't have the symptoms anymore. Like, it's really brilliant, but I worked in all layers of my being, so I could really understand all the things that were contributing.
Right.
And I was thinking too, as you were talking, like, just this conversation is so much fun to have. And there's so many people that are going to be listening that see themselves in us, and like, oh wow, I feel called to be giving these messages, to be healing, to be helping others, so, and the healthier your whole system becomes, the more able you are to do that, to help other people. So
right. And I think it's in the waking up, the waking up of humanity, that the world will be saved. I mean, what was it the Dalai Lama said? He said it's the Western woman that's going to save the world, or whatever his exact quote was.
yes, goosebumps. I just said that in a speaking gig in front of a whole big group of women recently, and we are.
Yeah, I think it's so true. And, learning to take care of ourselves first, so that we can, have the impact on our immediate circles, and it just ripples out, right? I think that is, self-care is actually one of the highest callings there is. And I know some people feel selfish or self-centered by taking care of themselves first, but if they don't do that, they have nothing left to give.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And it's not selfish, you're not taking away from someone else when you're giving to yourself. Actually you're helping others around you, because you're just happier in general. So
right. You have more capacity to give in so many ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Generosity of spirit. And I think of my mother-in-law, who's I know she considers herself a very selfless woman, but in doing that, she really works herself into the ground, to the point that she's not going to be around as long as we want her to be, because she just, at the rate she's going, she's not going to have a long life.
Yeah, that's a really good point to bring up, is really for our listeners to really review, where are you over giving?
Mm-hmm.
I actually, just a real quick thought I have here about breast cancer. If you think about the breast, and this is something important to understand about transpersonal psychology, is because we look at the body as a metaphor for our experience too. And so the breasts are for nurturing, they're for feeding. That's ultimately what they're for. And that overgiving is something that I see women with breast cancer are doing. So we work with releasing that. And I've watched tumors shrink and disappear with people, because we got to the root cause, the thoughts, feelings, the belief root cause, So it's, yeah.
Anyway, I know we could just chat on forever, but I want to give you an opportunity to say a little bit about the free gift that you have for our listeners.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. So what I have is a free ebook on my website. It's meghaworth.com, MEGHAWORTH.com. And it's 10 steps to overcoming the effects of victimization. And in it, you'll get my whole person integration technique, because you can learn how to do that on yourself. And then I have the ACE quiz, as I mentioned earlier, and a free recipe book, five lunch anti-inflammatory recipes for people on the go. So, and they're all recipes I made up for celebrity clients. They're really delicious and some of my favorites. So
very, very cool. It's sort of a sad commentary, but lunch on the go is such an important thing in our culture.
It is, because people will get to work, they won't have a plan, and then they'll grab, I guess I'll just go to the vending machine, and you'll end up with those little peanut butter Ritz cracker things, and you're going to feel horrible. And you're not going to get the nutrition your body needs. So if you just plan ahead and spend a few hours on Sunday, sometimes only 2 hours it takes, just to prep a few things and have them ready in the fridge, and then boom.
Yeah.
I still do that. I make almost all my own food, and I love it. I love the relationship I have with the food. It's nourishing and nurturing.
Yep, absolutely. I think that Sunday food prep day is one of the key habits of health in today's world. I mean, unless you're lucky enough to have somebody who cooks for you. But even these days, the person who cooks for you is probably also really busy. So
yeah, true.
Here for you. Anyway, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me today, to be with all of us. And I look forward to connecting with you more. And I will see you all later.